Hey everyone, it's your buddy back again with another exciting fanfic, which is what if Naruto and Hinata returned as Emperor and Empress to destroy Konoha Part 3. If you enjoy this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now, let's dive right into the fanfic. If only Kurenai knew. But the story gets even more interesting, Hinata continued. Not only Naruto was banished on trumped-up charges, but Tsunade and Jiraiya spearheaded the entire thing. Betrayed by his own godparents. But there's more. Naruto's father was Jiraiya's star student in the sealing arts. Kushina was a surrogate daughter to Tsunade. Naruto has connections to the Senju clan through Hashirama's wife, Mito Uzumaki, who was the first Jinchuriki to the Nine Tails. It was Shino who connected the dots, as he studied Konoha's history. Mito Uzumaki married Hashirama Senju in order to bring the families closer into an alliance. Tsunade Senju is her granddaughter. From what Tsunade had confirmed, Kushina Uzumaki is her niece. His eyes widened as what he was about to say died on his lips. Hinata finished it for him. Yes, Shino. Tsunade banished her great-nephew. Enough. Kurenai shouted, now furious over the fact that Hinata had broken several of Konoha's darkest secrets. Enough, Hinata. Or what, Kurenai? Hinata shot back, not backing down from her former sensei. You're still in the bingo book for deserting Konoha, the Genjutsu mistress replied, preparing to strike. And you broken the laws regarding Uzumaki's lineage. I wanted to try and reconcile with you, but you leave me no choice. Shinra. Tensai. Crunch. Kiba looked around. What the hell was that? Kiba half shouted, looking around. More than likely, the Uchiha pissing off the Emperor, Hinata replied casually. And he is not as forgiving as most people think. Kurenai's eyes went wide like dinner plates. That stupid boy, she shouted, her problems with Hinata forgotten. Kiba. Shino. On me. We got to stop Sasuke. As Cell 8 bolted off to stop Sasuke from igniting a war between the Empire and the Leaf, Hinata merely smiled. So, it begins, she thought. With Kakashi, Asuma and Guy. While Kurenai had a reunion of her own, Kakashi decided to check out the town. Asuma and Guy, having given up on trying to find his former students, decided to tag along. Sasuke had ran on ahead in order to confront the Emperor, and given the fact that the Emperor and his wife were highly skilled warriors who could kill his former student in more ways than he could out, Sasuke could end up bringing a war onto Konoha's doorstep. While looking for Sasuke, they entered a section of Suna in which the presence of Imperial troops was more heavy than what they usually see. It soon became clear why to the trio of Junin. Before long, they were stopped by 3 Imperial shinobi. Kakashi saw that they were high Junin level, which could mean trouble for them. Whoa, stop right there, the senior Imperial Junin said as several more shinobi kept their distance, but was more than ready to swarm the trio just in case. This is a restricted area, you can't pass here. We're from Konohagakure, Asuma replied, using diplomacy. We're here to offer any form of assistance if needed. Thanks for the offer, the Imperial Junin replied, but we got everything covered here. You're guarding something, Asuma said. Or rather, someone. You're smarter than you look, the Imperial Junin replied. We got a survivor from the Akatsuki, the leader himself, under guard. Given as to what he can do, the chief and his wife aren't taking any chances. Guy's SS class threat. That caught the Konoha trio's attention. The Empire had captured the head of the Akatsuki. Just how powerful is the Emperor, as he was able to do what Konoha and the rest of the elemental countries had failed to do, which was destroy the Akatsuki. I take it he didn't surrender willingly, Kakashi said. Nope. One of the chief's senior advisors had the honor of taking him down, the Imperial Junin said. The lady had the honor of killing the mad bomber from Iwa earlier, while the chief took out that one member with the real freaky red eyes. Now that I think about it, the Akatsuki head's eye was the same as the other guy's. Now that caught the trio's attention. The leader of the Akatsuki had the Sharingan. Feeling a sense of dread in his gut, Kakashi asked the question that was on his mind. What is the leader's name? He asked. The Imperial Junin turned to one of his comrades. Hey, Ko, what's that guy's name? The one that Lady Kurama captured? He asked. The one named Ko replied, it's Uchiha. His name is Obito Uchiha. Kakashi's eye went wide as he looked like had been given the 1,000 years of death. Even Asuma and Guy was concerned. Obito, who had thought to had died in the last shinobi war, was the head of the Akatsuki. No. It can't be. Obito's dead. Kakashi's mind screamed. What are his crimes? Asuma asked, pushing down his emotions. Crimes against the imperial nation and her allies, the Imperial Junin said, and crimes against the Emperor of the Western Empire. Both carry an instant death sentence. What crimes against the Emperor? Asuma asked. The murder of his parents, the Imperial Junin replied. We need to confirm that Obito Uchiha is indeed the head of the Akatsuki so we can file it in our reports to the Hokage and the Konoha Council, Asuma said. Can you take us to him? We can, the Imperial Junin replied, but this is your first and only warning. If you try to aid and abet the Uchiha in any shape, form or fashion, you three will be leaving Suna in a box. The Konoha trio nodded and they were led, under heavy guard, to where Obito was being held. In %, the building in which housed the fallen Uchiha belonged to a Suna merchant who had evacuated the village along with the rest of the Suna civilians. A one-story storage shed, it was now an impromptu jail cell which held one of the most dangerous men in the elemental countries. Outside the house, a squad of Imperial shinobi, members of Zabuza's Demon Brigade, stood guard, weapons drawn, watching the Konoha shinobi like a hawk. Inside the single room, were 4 more shinobi, also of the Demon Brigade. And seated in the center of the room, was the former teammate of Kakashi Hatake, the now former leader of the Akatsuki, Obito Uchiha. The broken man was seated in a chair, the Rinnegan which he had stolen from Nagato before invading Konoha was removed from his left eye, albeit forcibly at the hands of Kurama. Chakra suppression cuffs were on his hands and even his legs. A series of seals were on his back, which had sealed off his chakra, drained him of his strength and rendered his Sharingan unusable. Overkill, yes, but the Emperor was not one to take any chances. Obito was alone with his thoughts, his remaining eye closed when he heard someone call out his name. Obito. Obito, is that you? Now there is a voice I haven't heard in years, Obito said as opened his eye. Kakashi, Asuma and Guy stood before him. Kakashi Hatake. Asuma Sarutobi. Maida Guy. So it's true, Guy said. We all thought you were dead. Reports of my death were exaggerated, to say the least, Obito replied. Of course, that brat of an emperor will soon rectify that little matter soon. Obito. Why? Kakashi asked. Why are you the leader of the Akatsuki? Why didn't you come back home? How did you survive with half of your body being crushed? I survived because of one man who was thought to have died, Obito replied. I survived because of Madara Uchiha. Madara, Asuma repeated. He should have died years ago. He's even older than Onoki. Since I have a death sentence on my head, I might as well tell you the story, Obito said calmly. And he told them of how Madara survived all these years using Hashirama Senju's DNA and had awakened the Rinnegan, of which he had implanted into Nagato without him knowing, and replaced his eyes with a spare Sharingan. He told them that through the demonic outer path statue, which had kept him alive for all this time, that he created a living clone of the first Hokage, of which was now destroyed by the Emperor having sent his forces to level his hideout, and that the Emperor had resealed the demonic statue and banished it from this plane. I acted at his behest, Obito concluded. And I did it willingly, per to his final wishes. Why? Kakashi demanded, while Guy muttered something about, unyouthful. I wanted to return to Konoha at first, Obito said. But Madara said that would be impossible, as I owed him my life. The crushed parts of my body were reconstructed with Hashirama's cells. While I was recovering and learning how to use my new limbs, I found out through Zetsu that both you and Rin were being attacked by Mist Shinobi. I came to the site, and watched as you shoved a Chidori into Rin's chest. Kakashi winced. You killed Rin, Obito deadpanned. And I killed the Kiri shinobi when they tried to take her body. It was then, I realized that what Madara was telling me was indeed true. Our reality is indeed worthless and it should be destroyed. In its place would be a new reality. One where there would be no war, no pain and no suffering. Madara told me about the Moon Eye plan. By retrieving the Biju and merging them with the demonic statue, the 10-tailed beast would be revived, with myself as its Jinchuriki. I would use the power of the 10 tails to reflect the Magankyu onto the moon and place the world under an infinite Tsukiyomi. That fool Nagato truly believed that we were making a weapon powerful enough to force the elemental countries to make peace. You tried to make the world in your own image, Asuma said. By robbing it of its free will. Call it what you want, Sarutobi, Obito snapped. All I wanted was to end this world of lies. Sacrifices had been made, my clan, which I helped Itachi to destroy. Sensei and his wife. I still had the utmost respect for Minato, but he was so honorable to the end, even when I unleashed the 9 tails upon Konoha, as he sealed it inside his son. Asuma's eyes went wide. It was you caused the 9 tails to attack Konoha. All those people, the Yondaime and his wife, my mother, dead because of you. He was itching to kill the traitor himself. But now, it's over, Obito said, shoulders slumping. Madara will forever weep in the afterlife knowing that his plans will not take place. The Emperor of the West has retrieved the remaining Jinchuriki and offered them asylum within his empire. To be beaten by a little brat. We're done here, Asuma said to the Imperial Junin who had escorted the 3 of them here. I hope you die slowly, Uchiha, he snarled as he and the other 2 turned on their heels and began to walk to the door. Hitaki. Kakashi stopped in mid-step. He turned around. Come closer, Obito said. There's something else you need to know. Wary, Kakashi walked back to Obito, who motioned for him to come even closer so that he could whisper into Kakashi's ear. Kakashi complied, and Obito told him the final piece of information he had. Something which had rocked even Kakashi to the core. With that, Obito went silent. He would remain silent until the Emperor himself executed him. Upon being escorted out of Obito's impromptu cell, Kakashi had been whispering to himself, it can't be, impossible. What is it? Asuma demanded. What did Obito tell you? He told me the identity of the Emperor, Kakashi confirmed. The Emperor is Shinra Tensai. Crunch. Asuma, Guy and Kakashi turned to the direction of the explosion. What the hell? Asuma wondered as they sped towards the source of the explosion. On the way, they ran into Kurenai and Cell 8. Kurenai said one thing which had them on edge. We have to stop Sasuke. He's fighting the Emperor now. Asuma nodded and they rushed off to stop the Uchiha from getting himself killed. As they ran to stop Sasuke, Obito's final words rang in Kakashi's mind. The Emperor is Minato Sensei's son, the student who you had forsaken. The Emperor is Naruto Uzumaki. With Tsunade, Sakura and Jiraiya. Flanked by Kankuro and Temari, the Kazekage of Suna looked at his Konoha counterpart with great disdain. Both Sakura Haruno and Jiraiya were flanking the Godime Hokage. What are you doing here? He demanded. Last time I checked, we terminated the alliance with Konoha. We came to offer any assistance in any way, Tsunade explained. But from the look of things, you already have everything under control. Gaara nodded. The battle has been over for nearly a week. The Akatsuki has been completely destroyed. Its leader has been captured by the Empire and will be executed for his crimes. The elemental countries can now breathe a sigh of relief knowing that the Akatsuki is no more. Can we have a report on the battle? Jiraiya asked. One has been sent to the fire daimyo, Kankuro said. You should be getting a copy from him in a matter of days. You just did not show up because you wanted to join in on the battle, Gaara said. What do you want? To speak with the Emperor, and try to smooth over some of the lies he has heard, Sakura said. Some of which were spread by you and your village. Tsunade shot her pupil a nasty glare. Look, we came here to help out, to try and repair our alliance, she explained. It's clear that even without the Empire backing you, that Suna is on the fast track to usurping the leaf as being the strongest of the villages, while Kazuhana's shinobi village will knock us off as one of the 5 main villages. So you want to try and get back on my good side, is that it? Gaara asked, just as Yamato entered the room. While Yamato spoke with the 2 Sannin and Sakura, Asuna Junin appeared via Shunshin and whispered into Gaara's own ear. While Gaara looked amused, Sakura and the 2 Sannin looked very angry. When were you going to tell us that the Empire had retrieved the Jinchuriki and used them to fight in this war? Tsunade demanded. Wasn't my place to say it, Gaara replied. The Emperor convinced them to fight in this was against the Akatsuki. The Akatsuki were looking for the power of the Jinchuriki, and the Emperor gave it to them, although they were on the receiving end of it. If the rest of those demons were here, Sakura began, then Uzumaki was here as well. Gaara's eyes narrowed. In the far corner, the gourd which carried Gaara's reserve sand shook slightly, right before the cork popped out. Senju, please get your student under control, or else the next words out of my mouth will be, sand coffin. Tsunade threw a glare to Sakura which told her to shut up. Gaara continued. Yes, Uzumaki is here, but he is in the employ of the Western Empire, and thus, out of your jurisdiction. However, I would be more concerned about the leader of the Akatsuki which the Empire has captured. In fact, the Emperor has been privy to the identity of the Akatsuki chief for quite a while now. He leaned back in his chair. Tell me, does the name Obito Uchiha ring any bells? That got a reaction from Tsunade, but from more importantly, Jiraiya. Obito was Minato's student. We all thought that he had died in the last shinobi war. I thought that Nagato was the head of the Akatsuki. Gaara said. Far from it. The Empire's information network is very thorough, even more so than yours. However, I would be more concerned about Konoha's golden boy picking a fight with the Emperor. Realization crept across the Sannin's faces, just as Shinra, Tensai, Crunch. Damn that Uchiha, Tsunade shouted, turning on her heels and bolting out of the room, Jiraiya and Sakura following her. Behind his desk, Gaara merely smiled. This is going to be one hell of a family reunion, he mused. Minutes earlier, at the Imperial Consulate, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze looked at Kurama and the assembled Jinchuriki that knelt before him. He could not be any more prouder of not only his forces, but of the Jinchuriki and the role they played in the destruction of the Akatsuki. Money cannot buy the honor which you all have earned here through your actions during this conflict, Naruto began, once again masking his voice. He also knew that Yamato was watching, as he had triggered the seals he had placed inside the neighboring building. Your actions here in the past several days will forever be remembered, as you have brought much credit upon yourselves and on the unified Western Empire. As Emperor of the Imperial Nation, I declare you all national treasures of the Empire. Sir. Kurama and the Jinchuriki barked out in unison. Had Yamato remained inside his hidey hole for another 15 seconds, he would have seen Sasuke Uchiha forced his way inside the Imperial Consulate. The Imperial soldiers inside drew their weapons, but the Emperor ordered them to stay their hand. Not really caring that the Emperor had the Jinchuriki, Sasuke stormed across the courtyard, Sharingan ablaze. Where is he? Where is he? Sasuke demanded. Naruto looked amused. You again, Uchiha. Where is my brother? Sasuke demanded. I know he was here. They said that he was fighting you. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. People say plenty of things. I could have either been fighting either your brother, or his walking sushi plate of a partner. Maybe I was fighting the insane Jushinist and his miserly partner. You never know. This is your first and only warning, little man. Leave now or else I will not be held responsible for what happens if you refuse. Damn you! Sasuke shouted as he unsheathed his chokoto. Lighting began to dance along the blade as Sasuke charged. Big mistake, Fu muttered as she and the other Jinchuriki quickly got out of the way. Naruto's eyes shimmered into the Rinnegan as he raised one hand. Shinra. This is going to hurt, muttered to himself. Tensai. Sasuke felt an invisible force lift him off his feet and sent him crashing through the compound wall before landing amongst the debris from the battle and from the remains of the compound wall. Naruto did not give him a chance to recover, as he hopped through the gaping hole in the wall and with an uppercut from hell to the jaw, propelled Sasuke into the air. As Sasuke fell back to the ground, Naruto kicked him hard in the chest. Only to find out that he had kicked a log in two. So he's finally learned something, Naruto thought as Sasuke appeared from behind, Chikudo in hand, ready to impale him. Smirking, Naruto executed the flash step. Derived from his father's signature Hiraishin, Naruto moved fast enough for him to leave an afterimage, of which Sasuke found out the hard way when his blade slashed through Naruto's afterimage. Flashing through several hand seals, Naruto unleashed his jutsu. Wind release. Deadly Tempest. Having seen Temari's signature Kamidachi in action, Naruto had created a jutsu using Gaara's fan-wielding sister as his inspiration. The Deadly Tempest was an A-ranked jutsu which blasted the opponent with hurricane force winds. Depending on which type of element he was using at the time, the Deadly Tempest had several interesting effects. If he combined the jutsu with his fire affinity, then the person on the receiving end would suffer third-degree burns. The wind affinity was the opposite. It supercooled the air, making the person not only numb, but it slowly drained their chakra. Sasuke was hit with the latter. The powerful winds crashed into the Uchiha prince's body, once again lifting him up into the air and sending him into the general direction of Suna's village square, Sasuke cursing the emperor as he was sent flying. The last Uchiha crashed into the town square, just as Tsunade, Jiraiya, Yamato and Sakura came charging out of the Cage Tower, while Kakashi, Asuma and Guy emerged from a side street, following their conversation with Obito Uchiha, and Cell 8 came from around the corner following their confrontation with Hinata. Naruto calmly walked into the square as Sasuke tried to get back to a vertical base. Meanwhile, the Imperial forces had blocked off the Konoha shinobi's escape route, effectively separating the Sannin, the Junin and the remnants of Konoha 11 from the majority of the Konoha Junin that were still outside of Suna, creating an impromptu arena. Silly little Uchiha who thinks he is a match for me, Naruto mused. Sasuke coughed up a wad of blood and spit it out. Shut up, he snarled. Where is Itachi? Itachi? So your brother has a name, Naruto said, one hand going into his pocket. He pulled out the item he knew that would set Sasuke over the edge and tossed it to his former teammate, where it landed at his feet. Sasuke looked down and his eyes went wide. With a trembling hand, he reached down and picked up the item. An item he recognized instantly, as it had something to do with his brother. The item in question was Itachi's Akatsuki ring. Correction. He had a name, Naruto said. Sasuke began to tremble as the full totality of what the Emperor was saying had struck him with full force. In case you fail to realize, Uchiha, Naruto continued, your brother is dead. His body, along with what remains of the Akatsuki, is being burned outside of the village walls. Sasuke looked at the ring. Then back at the Emperor. The Magenkyu began to spin rapidly as the cursed seal reactivated, thus breaking through the seals Jiraiya had placed on him years earlier that was designed to nullify the cursed seal's influence. Itachi was dead. The Emperor did the one thing that he could not, which was to kill him. His family would be unavenged. He was indeed, albeit he did not know of Obito's existence, the last Uchiha. Flame-like patterns began to appear on Sasuke as the cursed seal began to make him stronger. Black flame patterns began to appear, spreading from Sasuke's shoulder, to one side of his face and down his arm, ending at his hand, which was currently charging a second Chidori. Oops, Naruto taunted. Did I say something wrong? You bastard. Sasuke bellowed as he charged, the now freed cursed seal giving him a boost in speed. Die. Sasuke. No. Jiraiya and Tsunade shouted. Instead of using the flash step, Naruto spun to the side, the cage-style hat falling off his head as Sasuke passed him, missing where his head was at just moments earlier, and prepared his own counterattack. One that anyone who knew the Yondaime recognized almost instantly. Sasuke. Don't. Kakashi shouted, just as Sasuke spun to face the Emperor. The Emperor is Rasengan. Rasengan. The melon-sized orb of concentrated chakra had obliterated Sasuke's Anbu armor, leaving him naked from the waist up, and had once again sent him flying. The Uchiha prince landed on his back. The mind-numbing effects of sustaining the deadly tempest earlier had sapped the tainted chakra from Orochimaru's cursed seal, causing the black flames to dissipate off of Sasuke's body. You could literally hear a pin drop as Naruto rose to his full height, Hinata moving to his side. To those from Konoha who knew Minato Namikaze, it was as if he was standing before them, save that he was now a redhead and he wore a haori instead of a trench coat. But he was anything but. Sasuke. Sakura shouted, seeing her husband to be being sledgehammered back by her former teammate. The pink head turned her attention towards Naruto. Instantly, she saw red. Ungloved hand balled into a fist, she let out a feral scream and charged at Naruto. Sakura. No, Tsunade shouted, holding her student back. Let me go, Tsunade. Sakura shouted. Look what he did to Sasuke. Rinnegan activated. Naruto looked at the gathered Konoha shinobi. His earlier visit to Konoha showed that they were not under Danzu's genjutsu, meaning that their hatred for them was indeed genuine. Which was good in Naruto's case, meaning that the gloves were now off. Naruto deactivated the Rinnegan. Well, isn't this the reunion? He said, looking at his former teammates. Although we are now on opposite sides. Tossing a glance to his wife, he said, and here, I thought they would be happy to see us. Hinata gave him a dry grin. I think not, she said. From his place on the ground, Sasuke managed to get out. Dobi, the Emperor, you. It's true, Kakashi said, raising his Hitai-8, exposing the Sharingan. Naruto saw that it was the Magankyu. Obito confirmed it. Uzumaki is the Emperor of the West. It was then that the Sannin and to the shinobi who had went to the west began to connect the dots, as the full totality of what was now revealed to them. Naruto Uzumaki was the descendant of the Six-Path Sage. Naruto Uzumaki wielded the Rinnegan. Naruto Uzumaki was the Emperor of the Western Empire. Tsunade's eyes narrowed, as did Jiraiya's. Up until Jiraiya's return from the Western Empire, the West was the last place that Naruto would have ended up in. Now, he was back, and seeing as how they screwed him over, was an even bigger threat to Konoha than Orochimaru, Kumo and Iwa combined. How did a dead last like you become the Emperor of the West? Asuma demanded. You can thank your father and those two idiots, Naruto said, referring to Jiraiya and Tsunade. Your father tried to stunt my growth. When that failed, Tsunade and Jiraiya banished me, and tried to kill me by sending Hunter Ninja after Hinata and myself. He pulled out a Hiraishin kunai and begun to spin it from the ring on one finger. Unlike his father's tri-bladed Hiraishin kunai, these were of Naruto's design. Black carbon steel, with the Hiraishin seals carved onto the blade itself, think Lee Christmas throwing kunai. I should have had you executed, Tsunade seethed. Damn it, I should have killed you the moment that you arrived with Jiraiya. Now that's no way to treat your godson, or rather, your great-nephew, Naruto replied. How would my parents think about the both of you breaking your promise to look after me after they died? If you want the true culprit of the Nine Tails attack on Konoha, it's Obito himself. Besides, you kill me, the Nine Tails will kill you in retaliation. You are no son of Minato and Kushina, Jiraiya shot back. You killed them. You are just a demon in human skin. Naruto chuckled, sending chills down the Sannin's, and everyone else's, spines. You really should rein in your temper, pervy sage, he replied. I could had you and the others killed back in Kimen and your heads sent back to Konoha. But you should be glad that I decided to cut some time for this little reunion. He began to leak potent killer intent as he continued to speak, addressing the Sannin. I'm sensing plenty of bad blood between the three of us. The memories are overwhelming, to tell you the truth. How many crimes have you committed against me and my family? Naruto began to count off their crimes on his fingers. First off, you went along with Sarutobi's scheme to make me into a weapon, instead of following my father's final wishes of having me seen as a hero. And what else? What else? Oh, that's right, the both of you and nearly all of Konohagakure no Sato favored a potential traitor and banished me for doing my job. His gaze fell upon Tsunade and Jiraiya. But the biggest crimes of all came from you two. You betrayed me, and by extension, betrayed my parents. Betray. Jiraiya repeated. Betray. You're wrong, Naruto. We didn't betray Minato and Kushina. We honored them. Every single day you suffered growing up in the Leaf, that was to honor their sacrifice they made in allowing you to live. You were nothing more than a mistake. An accident. Sensei lost his wife, I lost Minato, and Tsunade lost her niece. You were a living reminder of what we had lost. For that, you had to pay. Funny, because I met them a couple of years back. You see, as a fail-safe, they left a portion of their souls inside the seal as a last resort should I reach 8 tails or decide to break the seal, Naruto retorted. He grinned evilly. They know about your crimes against me. They wanted to tell you that the both of you are in deep shit. You lie, Tsunade shouted. I never lie, hag, not when it comes to family or about my skills, Naruto replied. Whether you believe it or not is no consequence to me. The both of you betrayed my parents by choosing the leaf over my parents. You are not the son of the Yondaime, demon. An Anbu wearing a hawk mask, who had not been separated from the others, shouted. Thunk. A kunai pierced the porcelain skull. Blood spurted out from the wound as the man fell over, dead before he had hit the ground. Kurenai looked at her former student in horror, as it was Hinata who had tossed the kunai. The Empress consort reached behind her back and retrieved her dual kukri knives, readying herself for the battle that was to come. Nice shot, Naruto complimented his wife. He cracked his knuckles as the Imperial forces backed off, taking to the roofs, as they knew that this battle was going to be very wild. Don't worry about my soldiers who are surrounding you. They will not interfere in our little reunion. You have got to be out of your mind to think that the both of you can win against us, Jiraiya said. A banished genin and a missing nin against 2 of the Sannin and the best shinobi that Konoha has to offer. You forget who I am, Jiraiya, Naruto replied as he activated the Rinnegan. I am the unpredictable shinobi of Konoha. Oh, wait, I am not a shinobi of Konoha. Tsunade saw to that. He snapped his fingers and a shadow clone appeared. It was of Naruto, but it was anything but. As the direct descendant of the Six Paths Sage, Naruto wielded the Rinnegan, having unlocked it at the Valley of the End during his fight with Sasuke Uchiha. In his years in the West, Naruto had honed his skills under Kurama's tutelage. One signature jutsu of anyone using the Rinnegan was called the Six Paths Jutsu. In truth, there were 7 paths, the 7th being the outer path. Naruto, however, preferred using the other 6 paths, as the outer path pertained to life and death itself. Nagato had derived his own jutsu, the 6 paths of pain, from the original jutsu. Naruto was no different. Unlike Nagato, who used bodies and chakra receivers for his jutsu, Naruto preferred reinforced shadow clones. Unlike his standard Kage Bushin, these were reinforced, and would not dissipate when struck hard enough. They would only disperse upon Naruto's command. Naruto called his own variant of the 6 Paths Jutsu the Wrath of the 6 Paths. Naruto himself used the Diva Path, incorporating it into his fighting style. The clone looked scary, even for the shinobi from Konoha. The reddish blonde hair was spiked upwards. Dark markings were on his face, eyes, chest and arms. He was naked from the waist up, showing off a muscular body. He wore a tattered black hakama with a red flame pattern. A pair of greaves were on his shins, although one was covered by the hakama, while the other leg had tucked into the greave itself. Last, his arms had a metallic look to them, as if they were made of an indestructible metal. This was the strongest of Naruto's paths, the Asura path. Sasuke got back to his feet, and fell back to his knees. Whatever Naruto had hit him with had drained him of his chakra. Dobi, you killed Itachi. You took my rightful vengeance from me. Naruto responded by making a blah blah gesture with his hand. I will make you beg for mercy. Then I will take your throne, and your wife. The Uchiha finished, looking at Hinata. He had not forgotten that she nearly chopped off his balls back in Kimen. But from the look of things, she appeared to be even stronger than Sakura. The Dobi will pay, Sasuke thought darkly. Then I will take his wife as my prize. She will pay for what she tried to do to me. Yan, you couldn't beat me at the Valley of the End. You couldn't beat me in T Country. Right now, I'm 2-0 against you, Naruto replied. To the summoned path, he gave its marching orders. Keep Hitaki, Sarutobi, Guy and Yamato occupied. The Sannin are mine. The Anbu are expendable, sir. Asura Naruto barked out and prepared to fight. Tsunade cracked her knuckles. I am going to enjoy humiliating you in front of your men, she said. You can try, Naruto retorted. I'm not the same Naruto Uzumaki you banished. Before anyone could make a move, however, a massive broadsword landed in between the group from Konoha and the Emperor and his wife, blade first. Kakashi's eyes went even wider in horror as he recognized the blade, as did Sasuke and Sakura. The Kubikiribocho, the head-chopping cleaver, and its owner stepped into view, standing behind Naruto and Hinata. One thought to have died while in Wave Country. Well, Zabuza drawled. If it isn't, copycat Hitaki. I must have done something good in the past. Today is my lucky day. You should be dead. Sakura screeched. And yet, here I am, Zabuza said. He then addressed Naruto and Hinata. Far be it from me to interfere with both you and the missus's problems regarding Konoha, but Hitaki and I have unfinished business, and I've come to play, chief. Naruto knew what he wanted. Zabuza wanted Kakashi's head. Naruto had no problem with that, since he already beaten the crap out of his former sensei back in T Country. Naruto had promised that Zabuza could kill his former sensei and he was a man of his word. He's all yours, Zabuza, Naruto said. The demon of Kimen grinned underneath his bandages as he strode forward and retrieved his sword. Stay out of this, Kakashi said as he pulled out a pair of chakra sabers, modeled after the white light chakra saber that both his father and himself once carried. This is my fight. Get them, Tsunade ordered. With that, what would become the Konoha Imperial conflict has begun. With Naruto, Jiraiya and Tsunade Senju were two of the three legendary Sannin, the former students of Hiruzen Sarutobi. He was the Mountain Toad Sage, Konoha's resident spymaster, self-proclaimed super pervert and the trainer of Minato Namikaze, Konoha's Yellow Flash. She was the Slug Princess, granddaughter and great-niece of Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, a legendary medic nin and healer, and one of the best kunoichi in the elemental countries, the third Senju to assume the post of Hokage. Their opponent was their godson, Tsunade's great-nephew, as Kushina Uzumaki was her niece. They had the chance to choose family over the village, the chance to honor Minato and Kushina's final request. In the end, they decided to follow the whims of their former sensei, Hiruzen Sarutobi, in his plans to make Naruto Konoha's weapon. In the end, they decided to forsake their godson. And he was not happy. To say that their former godson was not very happy was saying that water country is a little wet. He was the son of the village hero and his wife, Konoha's Yellow Flash and Uzushiogekure's princess, also known as the Red Death. He was the Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tails Demon Fox, the dead last who they had banished when it became clear that not only did Sarutobi's plans to condition him had failed, but the fact that he could not be controlled. Fate sure had a way to bite someone on the SS. Sasuke Uchiha had attempted to flee from Konoha, believing that the village was not helping him in his quest to kill Itachi. Naruto had been banished and later marked for death because he was viewed as a threat to the Leaf, Tsunade and the council using the convenient excuse of using excessive force. While Sasuke trained under Danzo, Naruto, and Hinata had participated in a war which united the West under his rule 7 years earlier. While Sasuke gained the Magankyu, Naruto had the most powerful of bloodlines, the Rinnegan. While Sasuke had everything given to him, Naruto had worked and fought long and hard for everything he had. The Emperor of the West faced off against the two remaining Sannin. Jiraiya and Tsunade assumed that if the Hunter Nin did not kill Naruto, then he would die without Konoha's protection. There was no love lost between Naruto and the two Sannin, and he made that point known by making the first move, forcing both Tsunade and Jiraiya on the offensive. In a burst of speed, the Genin-turned-Emperor was upon the two elder shinobi, punching and kicking. Naruto could have went for an easy win, but chose not to. He wanted to do this up close and personal. Tsunade and Jiraiya found out the hard way that this was not the same brat they had banished 7 years earlier. Far from it, Naruto was not holding back, as he tagged both Jiraiya and Tsunade with several brutal shots. Sanshi had tutored Naruto not only in the art of combat, but in the art of tactics as well, which is why he was holding his own against the two Sannin. Know your enemy and know yourself, and you can fight 100 battles without disaster, Sanshi had told him during his days as a warlord in the Unification Wars. Naruto knew how Tsunade and Jiraiya had fought. Tsunade had her super strength and the slug contract, while Jiraiya had the backing of the toads and sage mode. While the seals he had drawn up had done its job of nullifying the summoning jutsus, as well as his own, Naruto still had to contend with their other abilities. Sidestepping a Rasengan from Jiraiya, Naruto grabbed a handful of Jiraiya's hair and slammed him to the ground. Raising one foot to stomp the toad sage's head into a fine paste, he failed to notice Tsunade coming in from behind, preparing to cave in Naruto's head with a chakra-powered punch to the skull. Imagine her surprise that it was not Naruto's head she destroyed, but rather a wooden log. Naruto had avoided the blow, and had reappeared behind the Godime. Bansho Tenin. Tsunade felt herself being lifted off her feet and flung backwards towards Naruto, who caught her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Using the momentum from the Bansho Tenin, he arched his body backwards, planting Tsunade head first into the ground via a vicious belly-to-back waist lock suplex, i.e., a German suplex. Getting back to a vertical base, Naruto began to punch Tsunade in the face repeatedly. After the first two blows, Tsunade managed to get her hands up in order to block her face from Naruto's onslaught of overhead punches. A battle cry from overhead had drawn Naruto's attention from his attempts to punch in the Godime's face. Looking up, he saw that Sasuke has now recovered. Chikuto in hand, he was looking to impale his former teammate. Naruto got out of the way, while Tsunade rolled out of the way, lest she would find herself impaled on Sasuke's weapon. Naruto faced off against the Uchiha Prince. Magankyu spinning, Sasuke went on the offensive. Naruto pulled out a black Hiraishin kunai and parried and deflected the attacks from the Uchiha. A backhand followed by a double open palm strike to the breadbasket forced Sasuke back to the ground, just as Naruto's senses went haywire. Spinning around, he saw Tsunade lifted an overturned pillar, twice as big as he was in her hands, showing off her super strength. With a yell, she heaved it towards Naruto. The Emperor of the West responded by jumping up, running across the pillar before leaping off and kicking the Godime in the side of her head, knocking her down. Turning back towards Sasuke, he saw Jiraiya charging in instead, headbutting Naruto, forcing him back. At the same time, Sasuke, now on his feet, tried to outflank him from behind. Naruto saw him, grabbed the last Uchiha and used him as a shield as Jiraiya tried to punch him. Instead, the super pervert nailed Sasuke right in the skull. Naruto knocked Jiraiya away and flung Sasuke into Tsunade. Pulling out a scroll, Naruto opened it, stained some of his blood on it, thus activating the scroll. As Sasuke saw from his place on the ground, it was a storage scroll which contained Naruto's signature weapon, the O-katana, think Virgil's Yamato from Devil May Cry. The O-katana he wielded was forged from the metal found inside a meteorite, the blade considered to be indestructible and incredibly sharp, as well as highly adaptable to chakra. Naruto had found it while returning from a campaign in the north. The sword was hidden inside a cave inside the Laja Mountains. That and over 400 cases full of gold bars, which he used to fund his campaign of unification, and later used it to build the empire. Sasuke looked at the sword and retrieved his own chokoto. Nice sword, he said. I'll take that off your hands as well. You are not worthy of having such a weapon in your possession. It would be better suited for me, Dobi. Naruto unsheathed his weapon. You are not worthy of this blade, Uchiha. The sword recognizes me as its master. It will reject you. Jiraiya, now recovered, saw that Naruto was distracted with Sasuke and activated Sage Mode. Drawing upon his Senjutsu, he created an Odama Rasengan. With Sage Mode activated, it gave him a boost in speed, of which he used to charge at Naruto from behind. Naruto smirked as he sensed Jiraiya's attempt to kill him with his father's signature move. Not breaking eye contact with Sasuke, he uttered the words, Imperial Style, Flash Step. Even with the Sharingan active, Sasuke could not follow Naruto's movements, or copy the technique, as he moved incredibly fast, as Jiraiya found out the hard way. Instead of impaling Naruto, Jiraiya found that his Rasengan had went through an after-image of his former godson. Naruto emerged out of the technique, on Jiraiya's side, sword raised over his head, his intentions made clear. Slash. Thump. Jiraiya's outstretched arm fell to the ground, the Odama Rasengan dispelling, its chakra depleted. Jiraiya's shock was short-lived, as Naruto kicked him in the breadbasket, knocking him back, blood erupting out of his stump like a geyser. Sasuke stood there, shock evident on his face as his brain processed what Naruto had done. Jiraiya! Tsunade shouted, having witnessed the amputation of the super pervert's arm by Naruto. Her face twisted into rage, she jumped to her feet, ready to attack yet again before Naruto stopped her. Senju. I would be more worried about your teammate rather than me, Naruto said, looking at Jiraiya. He's starting to go into shock from the blood loss. I'd give him 10-20 minutes tops before he bleeds out without any treatment, he said in a casual tone as if he was discussing the weather. So what's it going to be? Fight me and let Jiraiya bleed to death. Or don't fight me and save his life. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya, then back at Naruto. Gritting her teeth, she knew that this battle between herself and Jiraiya against Naruto was over, as he was right. She turned from the Emperor and began to save Jiraiya's life, lest he bled to death. She was out of this fight, as from the look of things, she had injured and dead shinobi on her hands. Turning back to Sasuke, who had quickly gotten over his shock of seeing one of the most powerful of the Sannin being crushed so easily, he brought his sword into a ready stance. Now, where were we? Sasuke smirked as he raised his Chikudo. I was going to show everyone here why I am an elite. I think Emperor of the West would suit me better than a dobi like you. You always loved the sound of your own voice, didn't you, Sasuke? Naruto said as they circled. You wouldn't last 5 minutes in the Empire. Face it, you are second best. That made Sasuke mad. You think that you're the only one who knows swordplay. I was taught by the best in Konoha. Naruto raised his sword in a formal salute, Dooku style. Then show me, Sasuke Uchiha. Let's see if the so-called Uchiha elite is a match for the Emperor of the Six Paths. With that, the duel was on. With Hinata, aside from Kurenai and Cell 8, Sakura Haruno faced off against Hinata Hyuga. The shy, meek, insecure shinobi that had her SS handed to her by Neji was gone. In her place was a medic nin, forged in the fires of the Unification Wars. Sakura had kicked herself for not realizing it sooner, that the former heiress to the Hyuga was not only the Empress consort, but the head of the medic nin program. But now, as Sakura found out as she and Kurenai's team surrounded Hinata, Hinata was an unknown. She was not the insecure genin who got her SS handed to her by her elder cousin. She was Naruto's wife, which made her the Empress consort of the West. Whatever, Sakura snorted as she prepared for the inevitable fight. I've trained under Tsunade. I'm her true successor to becoming Sannin. Not that pig Ino. Hinata will soon see that fact firsthand. Sakura would find out just how wrong she was, as Hinata had brought her down in 10 hits, think Jun's 10-hit combo, knocking her out cold, her Tenketsu points sealed. Kurenai gave the order to attack. Hinata calmly countered the attacks from her former teammates. Kurenai had went for an easy win, or so she had hoped, with her signature tree-binding death jutsu, only to find out that Hinata's enhanced Byakugan had neutralized her genjutsu. Shino attempted to use his Kikachu to drain her chakra and force Naruto to surrender, only to see Hinata incinerate the tornado of Kikachu with what she called the Deadly Tempest. Hinata then dropped Shino with several Senbon needles laced with a slow-acting poison. The poison wasn't lethal, but was designed to attack the nervous system, meaning that Shino would be out of it for a while, and he will need plenty of time to recover. The battle was now 3-on-1, as the Inuzuka and his dog, now mimicking Kiba, and Kurenai fought Hinata. The Empress consort, as they had found out, had some new tricks, as what remained on Cell 8 learned the hard way. As Hinata was distracted with Kiba and Akamaru, Kurenai attacked from behind. Kunai in hand, she was ready to stab Hinata in the back. 8 trigrams. Kaden. Smack. Kurenai knew of the Hyuga's Kaden, or rotation. She knew that it was an defensive move, designed to deflect any type of projectiles, as she had seen Neji Hyuga use it against Naruto Uzumaki during the Chunin exams. Hinata, however, had made it into an offensive weapon. Her body covered from head to toe in chakra, Hinata spun on her heels, the waves of chakra emerging from her body. To Kurenai, it was as she had taken one of Tsunade's super punches to the face, as she found herself being propelled into the air. A volley of poison-laced Senbon needles soon followed and met its target, leaving Kurenai in the same state as Shino. She fell back to the ground, having been taken out of the fight, leaving Kiba and Akamaru to face Hinata. With Hinata preoccupied with Kurenai, Kiba and Akamaru struck. Gatsuga. Hinata knew that Kiba wasn't above cheap shots when her back was turned, she also did the same while back in the West. They were ninja, after all. Knowing firsthand as to how the Gatsuga worked, Hinata performed a second rotation, knocking Kiba and Akamaru out of the move, knocking them both to the floor. Kiba and Akamaru got back to their feet, but noticed the ever-familiar 8 trigrams pattern that they were standing on, which meant one thing. You're in my range, Kiba, Hinata confirmed. Ah, crap, Kiba muttered. Moving faster than the normal eye can track, Hinata struck both Kiba and Akamaru. As she had used the 64 palms, she split it in half, striking Kiba 32 times, and Akamaru 32 times. As Kiba found out, judging from the sealed chakra points, the broken leg, fractured wrist and broken ribs, Hinata had upgraded the 64 palms so that she can tear muscle and break bones. Kiba knew that he was out of the fight. Akamaru would be spending some time with Hana at the kennels. But despite everything, he considered himself lucky that Hinata did not hate him that much. Worst case scenario was that she could have killed him and Akamaru. You could have went easy on us. Kiba lamented. I did. I didn't kill you, Hinata replied. Despite you asking me out when we were kids, you were the nicest to me. This is your one-time deal, Inuzuka. With her former cell effectively neutralized, Hinata bowed out of the fight. With Kakashi and Zabuza, 7 years earlier, Zabuza Momochi was thought to have died in Wave Country. Of course, Kakashi had embellished the reports on what had happened during the mission. He said that Sasuke and Sakura had defended Tazuna, while he himself took out Zabuza. Naruto, being the dead last, did nothing. But he did not suspect that both Zabuza and his partner used a powered-up blood clone and fled to the west as the Mist Hunter ninjas closed in. In the 7 years since their last encounter, Zabuza had hooked up with a group of mist refugees living in the southern region and later, hooked up with Naruto in his quest to unify the West. The price Zabuza asked for: Kakashi Hataki's head. Aside from Kakashi, Zabuza had to deal with the 10 Anbu who had came to assist the Sharingan-wielding shinobi in killing the demon of Kimen. Or rather, the 5 Anbu, as Zabuza had cut them down without batting an eye, showing to Kakashi that Zabuza's skills has drastically improved in the years following his death, wielding his oversized sword as if it was like a normal katana. The remaining Anbu kept their distance as they watched Kakashi and Zabuza locked in a life-or-death duel. Kakashi had thought that without water for Zabuza to perform his jutsu, that this would be an easy match for him to win, and that Zabuza would die for real. But for someone who once preached, "Look underneath the underneath," he had underestimated the former mist swordsman, as he found himself on the defensive against Zabuza's barrage of attacks. The fight between the two shinobi, plus 5 Anbu, had moved inside a building. Had Kakashi and the others were paying any attention, they would have noticed that the building in question was a damaged restaurant, a popular eatery for the shinobi and civilians in Suna. Perfect for Zabuza, as he could finally use his silent kill to get rid of the annoying Anbu that were keeping their distance. Once Kakashi and the Anbu were inside, Zabuza pulled out several smoke bombs and threw them at Kakashi and the Anbu. Once they were properly distracted, Zabuza retreated into the kitchen. Out in the dining area, in the midst of several coughing fits, Kakashi managed to get out. "Be on your guard." Zabuza could be anywhere. Zabuza's laughter echoed through the restaurant. "Got that right, Hitaki. I am everywhere, and nowhere," his disembodied voice said. "The heart, the lungs, the spine, the brain, the liver, the kidneys, and the jugular. The body's 7 most vital spots. So many ways to kill, so little time. Be careful," Kakashi warned the Anbu with him. "He is the master of the silent kill." "Too late," Zabuza's voice said, the smoke finally clearing. "Your friends are already dead." Kakashi looked around, and sure enough, the bodies of the 5 Anbu were sprawled all over the floor. Then Zabuza appeared from behind, hoping to take Kakashi's head on in one swing. Instead, the demon of Kimen ended up cleaving a log in two. Zabuza spun around and deflected several kunai flung at him from Kakashi. Soon, the two men had locked blades. "Come on, Hitaki," Zabuza said. "I just want to take a little off the top." The sword fight then resumed, with Zabuza beating down Kakashi's defenses. Kakashi managed to break the stalemate and fired off a great fireball jutsu, of which Zabuza managed to block, giving him enough time to unleash Kamui. With Asura Naruto, Yamato, Asuma, Maida Guy and 30 Anbu who were inside the impromptu arena charged towards Naruto. But Asura Naruto stood in their path. "I am going to enjoy this," Asura Naruto said as he prepared to attack. While 10 of them assisted Kakashi against Zabuza, the remaining 10 stood with their Anbu commander. "Spread out," Yamato shouted. "Give him multiple targets. He can't take us all on." "I got him," Asuma shouted as he went through hand seals which Asura Naruto recognized. Snake. Rat. Snake. Tiger. Fire release. Ash pile burning. He said before blowing a cloud of chakra-enhanced gunpowder at Asura Naruto, enveloping him. Asuma was the son of Hiruzen and Bawako Sarutobi, a former member of the 12 Guardian Ninja, one of Konoha's top shinobi. So he thought he would cinch an easy victory over what was the village dead last. Asuma had read the files on Naruto, as he was privy to his father's plans regarding the Uzumaki. He was one of many who had assaulted him as a child. The Shinobi Academy had sabotaged his training. Even Konohamaru's friendship to him was false, as it was an attempt for the Sandaime to have Naruto grow an attachment to the village. The only thing he had for him was that fact that he was the Jinchuriki and that he knew the shadow clones. As Asuma began to make the hand seals for a fire jutsu, the cloud of gunpowder suddenly blew back towards the Anbu and the Junin. Guy's eyes went wide as he saw a single sheet of paper fluttering in the black cloud. A sheet of paper with an intricate series of writing centering around a single word, explosive. Move. The spandex-wearing Junin shouted. Exploding tag. Asuma, Yamato, Guy and Yamato managed to get out of the way, along with 5 of the Anbu, just as the tag detonated, ending the lives of the other 5 Anbu in a violent explosion. Asura Naruto grinned. Apparently, Asuma had forgotten, or did not listen to Kakashi, that his primary element was wind, so blowing back the gunpowder was easy enough with a wind jutsu, followed by a explosive tag, causing Asuma's initial plan to literally blow up in their face. Tantos drawn, the remaining 5 Anbu charged at Asura Naruto, who charged at the 5. As Asuma and the others watched in horror, Asura Naruto knocked the attacking Anbu as if they were not worth the effort, knocking them aside. Judging from the unnatural angles and the blood pooling from their bodies, it was a safe bet to say that they died instantly. Asuma produced his trench knives and focused his chakra into the blades. Guy removed the weights from his legs. Yamato attacked first with his Tanto, only to find that it did not affect Asura Naruto in the slightest. Asuma rushed in, hoping that the flying swallow would be enough to cause some damage onto Naruto. Asuma slashed at Asura Naruto, who blocked the attack with his forearm. Sparks kicked off from the metallic arms, but what shocked Asuma was that there was no damage. That's impossible, Asuma thought. The flying swallow can cut through steel. Asura Naruto looked amused as he coasted his head to the side. Is that your best, Sarutobi? He taunted. Asuma's response was to launch a punch to the face, of which Asura Naruto calmly caught with one hand. Guy took this moment to blindside Asura Naruto from the side and tried to bumrush in. Without breaking eye contact, Asura Naruto's hand lashed out and caught Guy's neck in an iron grip. Asura Naruto turned his head to Guy, now having lifted a foot off the ground. Wait for your turn, he said, flinging him into Yamato, who tried to attack while he was distracted. The green beast of Konoha and the Mokoden-wielding Anbu captain crashed together in a heap, leaving Asura Naruto to deal with Asuma, having caught his other wrist when the Sandame's son tried to punch him yet again. Asura Naruto looked at the trench knife, then back at a defiant Asuma. I remember those knives, he mused. I remember that you tried to kill me with them when I was 6. You killed my mother, you demon bastard. I should have killed you when you were a baby. Asuma spat out. Typical, Asura Naruto said, right before. Crunch. The sound of bones breaking was heard throughout Suna. Inside the cage tower, the Inoshika Cho trio and Cell 9 winced at the sound. Asuma screamed as Naruto crushed both his hand and the trench knife with it, rendering both his hand and the knife useless. Asura Naruto dropped Asuma to the ground, the latter's hand and trench knife mangled and bloodied. When he brought his other hand to bear, Naruto responded by snapping his arm at the elbow. As Asuma sank to his knees, Naruto's knee smashed into Asuma's face, breaking his nose and knocking him unconscious. Damn you, you unyouthful demon! Guy shouted as he unlocked 4 of the 8 gates. Asura Naruto kicked Asuma out of the way and beckoned Guy. Come, so I can end you, he said. Like Asuma, Guy was also guilty of assaulting him in his youth. Asura Naruto charged at Guy, only to find himself encased in a tree, courtesy of Yamato and his tree-binding flourishing burial. Did that do it? Yamato whispered to himself, as he stood, knowing full well of the Mokoden's ability to reign in the power of a Biju. Did that stop him? From inside the tree, Asura Naruto gave his reply, no. It did not. Fire release. Deadly tempest. With eyes filled with horror, Yamato and Guy watched as the massive tree was reduced to carbon from the inside out, followed by Asura Naruto charging out of the destroyed tree, which collapsed onto itself, his intended target now clear. Yamato was on the receiving end of a metallic fist crashing against his jaw, breaking it in 3 places, which was followed by a kick to the sternum which sent him crashing through a wall, putting him out of commission. Guy, now having unlocked 7 of the 8 gates, moved in to combat Asura Naruto. With Asuma and Yamato out of commission, it was now up to him to take down the demon. You will pay for your unyouthfulness, demon. Guy shouted as he knocked Asura Naruto into the air, high above Suna. As Guy launched himself after him, he followed through with the reverse lotus, unleashing a vicious barrage of punches and kicks. To anyone who had seen Guy and his former student perform the reverse lotus, the technique would be finished off with either Guy or Lee hitting their opponent with one fist and one foot, resulting in terminal velocity for the unfortunate person on the receiving end. That, however, was not going to happen. As Guy attempted to deal the final blow, Asura Naruto disappeared, and reappeared behind Guy. Hands interlocked and raised over his head, Asura Naruto dealt the green beast of Konoha a vicious hammer punch that sent him back to Suna, where he made an impact crater upon landing. But Asura Naruto was not finished just yet. Upon returning to the streets via Shunshin, Asura Naruto strode over to Guy, who was trying to get back to his feet, and failing, as unlocking the 7 gates had depleted most of his chakra. Standing over the fallen Guy, Asura Naruto looked down in triumph. Not so fun when the demon brat fights back, isn't it? He taunted as Guy tried to crawl away. You sent me to the hospital many times following you, using me as a punching bag for your Guken techniques. He raised one sandal-ed foot. You thought I had forgotten that, haven't you? Naruto, please, show mercy, Guy pleaded. The gods show mercy. To those who tried to kill me as a child, I show none, Asura Naruto said, right before slamming it down onto Guy's spine. Guy screamed as he felt his spinal cord snap in several places. Your shinobi career is over, Maida Guy. See if you can get Tsunade to fix your back. Maida Guy whimpered as he tried to use his legs, but could not. The pain became too great, causing him to pass out. Looking at the carnage surrounding him, Asura Naruto felt a small measure of revenge. His battle was over. With a poof, he dispersed himself. With Naruto and Sasuke, Sasuke Uchiha was furious. He was an Uchiha, an elite, one of the strongest shinobi in Konoha. He wielded the Magankyu Sharingan. He was trained by both Kakashi Hatake and Danzo Shimura. All of Konoha had recognized his strength. Then there was his former teammate. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki, the demon of Konoha, the fox in human skin, the dead last. When Naruto was banished, he was pardoned. Despite his loss and that he used the cursed seal, Sasuke had claimed his greatness, saying that Naruto would have lost were it not for the 9 tails in his body. But as Sasuke was given anything and everything he wanted, Naruto had to work hard for what he had. While Sasuke lived a relatively peaceful life as Konoha's prince, Naruto had fought in the West, making alliances and forging an empire under his rule, bringing about a peace that has not been seen since the time of his ancestor, the Six Paths Sage. Simply put, Naruto had surpassed the self-proclaimed elite Uchiha. Naruto would admit that he had gotten lucky at the Valley of the End. But following their fight in Tea Country, it had become clear that Naruto was the strongest of the two. And once Sasuke knew that the Emperor and the Dobi was one and the same, it had pretty much enraged him. Naruto had no problem mixing it up with his own blade, which was why he and the Uchiha were currently in the middle of a vicious sword duel. Naruto effectively neutralized both Jiraiya and Tsunade. Sharingan versus Rinnegan, the Emperor versus the Elite. How are you so damn strong? Sasuke snarled as he and Naruto locked blades. You can't be this strong, Dobi. I am an Uchiha. That strength should be mine. How is it you are so damn strong? Why can't my hatred defeat you? I earned my strength through hard work. Even now, I don't use my Rinnegan as a crutch, Naruto replied, right before headbutting the Uchiha, followed by a roundhouse to the jaw, knocking him to the ground. That is the difference between us. There is no hatred, only passion. Through passion, I find strength. Naruto continued to deflect and parry Sasuke's attacks as he continued to speak, reciting what Sanshi had told him when he learned the ways of the samurai. Through strength, I gain knowledge. Through knowledge, comes serenity. He backhanded the Uchiha, busting his lip. There is no chaos within me, only harmony. Through harmony, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. You talk too damn much. Sasuke shouted. And you have learned nothing, Naruto replied as the battle intensified. The two former teammates turned enemies' flurry of swordplay. Sasuke's shinobi swordplay and Naruto's samurai and mist swordsmanship intensified until the two men ended up in a second blade lock. Your power, give it to me, shouted the Uchiha prince, activating the Sharingan. Naruto broke off the blade lock with a headbutt to Sasuke, which was followed by him planting both feet into Sasuke's chest, knocking him backwards. Naruto sheathed his O-katana. You can't win, Sasuke, he said as his opponent stood up. You're better off just giving up. I have long since surpassed you. I proved that at the Valley of the End. I proved it again in T-Country. And I proved it here. I have nothing else to prove to you. Sasuke's eyes were closed. No, you're wrong, Dobi. Naruto had a pretty good idea as to what was going to happen next, as he watched bloody tears emerge from his eyes. He steeled himself for Sasuke's final trump card. Sasuke's eyes opened, revealing the Magankyu Sharingan. Prove to me that you can die. Amaterasu. The strongest of the fire release jutsu and the strongest jutsu that an Uchiha can master. The flames of Amaterasu are said to be the fires of hell, hot as the sun, and said to be unavoidable, the flames capable of burning everything in its path, reducing whatever is caught in the flames to nothing but ash. Naruto's response to Sasuke's attack was to activate his Rinnegan, falling back into the Diva path. Shinra. Tensai. Sasuke's eyes showed complete shock as the black flames were extinguished. In a futile gesture, he raised his hands to block the incoming pressure wave, only to find himself once again on the receiving end of the Shinra Tensai, Naruto's jutsu flinging him back into a wall. Naruto was upon him in an instant. One punch to the sternum had caused Sasuke to cough up blood. This was followed by Naruto unloading a vicious barrage of punches into Sasuke's chest and torso, Sasuke's body jerking like a rag doll with each blow. The coup de grace came with Naruto punching Sasuke through the wall. Looks like I win again, Naruto said smugly. Turning from the mangled Uchiha, Naruto walked back into the street. Then he stopped and turned around. Sasuke, despite being badly injured, stumbled out of the hole Naruto had made with his body. Dobi, we are not done yet. I'll give you this much. You're persistent, Naruto admitted, but the battle is over. You lost. The Sannin lost. It's over. Damn you. Damn you. Sasuke snarled as the cursed seal went into overdrive as he went into stage 2 of the cursed seal. His skin turned into a shade of dark gray, the lips a shade of blue. A black 4-point star-like mark appeared in between his eyes, above the bridge of his nose. His hair had gotten longer, ending at his waist. The eyes no longer had the Sharingan. The sclerae turned black, the irides now yellow. Last, were the large webbed hand-shaped wings on his back. Die Naruto! Sasuke screamed as he rose into the air, right before diving at Naruto, claws outstretched, ready to rip Naruto apart. Had Sasuke been paying any attention, he would have noticed the smirk on Naruto's face. Or the ball of chakra-infused lightning in his hand. Imperial style. Chidori. Sasuke's eyes bulged out of its sockets as Naruto nailed him with Kakashi's signature assassination jutsu, payback for Sasuke doing the same to him. The Uchiha prince screamed as the electricity coursed through his body, playing haywire with his chakra and nervous systems, and leaving a fist-sized hole in his shoulder, the same spot where Sasuke had done to Naruto years earlier, not to mention giving the people watching this fight a good view of his skeleton. The force of the Chidori sent Sasuke sailing back to the mangled remains of Konoha's shinobi. Tsunade and Sakura had their hands full. Sakura wanted to go after Naruto, but Tsunade had ordered her to remain behind to help with the wounded. Asuma's hand was mangled, the other arm broken. Kurenai and Shino had been poisoned by Hinata, while Kiba and Akamaru had several broken bones. Guy's shinobi career was pretty much over, as his back was shattered. Yamato also had several broken bones, and Jiraiya's arm was severed. This battle was over. You used the Chidori on me back at the Valley of the End, Naruto said as Sasuke returned to normal. Consider us even. He turned from Tsunade and the others. Hinata, having watched the fight from the sidelines, walked over to greet her husband properly. However, in her rush, she did not see Kakashi emerge from the restaurant from where he was fighting Zabuza moments earlier, having won his battle. Seeing as how Naruto had won, Kakashi did the only thing he could do. He targeted Naruto's wife. Rakiri. Naruto saw that Kakashi had Hinata in his sights. If Konoha came out as the loser in this conflict, then the Emperor would be without his wife. Kakashi was fast, but Naruto was faster. He performed a flash step, closing the distance and shoving Hinata out of the way, just as Kakashi's Rakiri struck Naruto square in the chest. Sharingan spinning, Kakashi saw that he did not kill Hinata, but he did catch Naruto. Tsunade and Jiraiya, despite being badly injured, looked upon the scene with grim satisfaction. Perhaps now Minato and Kushina could finally rest in peace with their killer dead. With this act, the Empire would be robbed of their emperor. I got you, demon, Kakashi grated. I finally got you. However, the look on Naruto's face was not disbelief that Kakashi had tried to kill him, but rather amusement. As Naruto rushed to intercept Kakashi's Rakiri, he had activated the Preta path, which allowed him to take the full brunt of Kakashi's Rakiri without the effect of death. Kakashi's look of triumph turned to one of total shock as Naruto absorbed the jutsu. Even Tsunade and Jiraiya saw that Naruto was still alive, and not dead on his feet. It was because of this development that Kakashi did not notice his impending doom coming from behind. Thwack! Kakashi's eyes bulged as he felt pain. Looking down, he saw the familiar shape of a massive sword sticking a foot out of his chest. Kakashi's eyes widened in horror as he recognized the blade, stained with his blood. The Kubikiribocho. No. Zabuza whispered from behind as he yanked his blade out of Kakashi, having got the jump on Naruto's former sensei. I got you, Hitaki. Zabuza. How? Kakashi gasped. Water clone, was all that Zabuza had said. You really thought that you suckered me, didn't you? You forgot about my water clones. During the fight inside the restaurant, Zabuza had retreated into the kitchen, broken the kitchen sink and used its water to create a reinforced water clone, of which he sent after Zabuza. Naruto had warned him of the Sharingan's abilities and now the demon of Kimen was thankful that he had listened to the Emperor's advice. All he had to do was wait for the perfect time to strike. And it came when Kakashi tried to kill Naruto with the Rakiri. Naruto and Hinata backed off several steps as Kakashi turned around, and looked into the face of the man thought to have been sent to the other dimension by the Kamui. Kakashi was looking into the face of his executioner. He was dead either way, as the wound Zabuza had delivered to him was mortal. For the crimes of betraying both the Uzumaki clan and my father, your sentence is death, Hitaki, Naruto coldly decreed. Turning to Kakashi, he gave his former sensei his parting words as Zabuza raised Kubikiribocho, savoring the look of horror mixed with fear as he knew what was coming. Death comes for us all, Hitaki. But when you die, something far worse awaits you. The blade of the head-chopping cleaver slashed its way through flesh, muscle and bone. Kakashi's head fell forward, while the body keeled over, the stump spilling blood in the street, the body twitching before finally going still. Kakashi Hitaki was dead, which is that you die with no honor, Naruto finished. Turning to Zabuza, he asked, happy now? Zabuza nodded. Very. Naruto turned to the injured Konoha shinobi. Sasuke had reverted back to human form following the Chidori to the chest and was being tended to by Sakura. Hinata made a signal, and the Imperial forces converged onto the scene, weapons drawn. Our battle is finished here, Naruto intoned. Take your wounded and leave my sight. Tsunade, now having stabilized Jiraiya, glared at her former godson. This isn't over, Naruto, shouted the godime. This is nothing but petty hatred and vengeance on your end. For the moment, it is over, Naruto replied. You call this hatred. I call it retribution. You say this is vengeance. This is justice. But this is only the beginning, you hag. This is the beginning of the end for the leaf. Go back to Konoha and tell them that the dead last has returned. Tell them that as the yellow flash brought Konoha's rise to power, the Emperor of the Six Paths will bring about its reckoning. Either leave under your own power, or I can send you back in a box. Make your choice now. Tsunade wanted to fight to the bitter end, to go out fighting. But Jiraiya needed immediate medical attention and her Junin were grievously injured. The Imperial forces parted, making a path for the beaten and wounded Konoha shinobi to pass through with the help of the surviving Junin who were kept from the battle at Blade Point, Tsunade giving one final hate-filled glare at Naruto, now placing the cage-style hat back on his head and walking away from the battle, Hinata at his side. As Tsunade and the Konoha shinobi departed from Suna, a fourth party, unknown to either Konoha, Suna or the Imperial West, made his own escape. A white-haired shinobi with glasses. Otogakure, Rice Country, several days later. Inside his laboratory, Orochimaru was going over some notes in regards to his new test subjects when Kabuto came running in, out of breath. Without looking up from his notes, he said, "You're a week late, Kabuto. I hope you have a very good reason as to why you are behind schedule." The Snake Sage had ordered Kabuto to investigate the Akatsuki's movements, which had led Kabuto to Suna. There, disguised as a Suna Junin, Kabuto had witnessed the deaths of both Deidara and Sasori at the hands of the Emperor and Empress consort. But before Kabuto could leave, Suna was placed under martial law, the civilians evacuated to several fallback spots. Then the Akatsuki invaded, and Kabuto ended up fighting alongside Suna and the Imperial forces against the Six Paths and their 100,000 white Zetsu army. Kabuto had a first-hand look as to how the Imperial forces, shinobi and samurai, fight. He also got a good glimpse of how the Imperial Medic Corps went about their work. But most important, he knew the identities of the Emperor and his wife, and of their connection to Konoha. To Orochimaru, the Western Empire was an unknown to him. Upon hearing about the Pakera outpost in Wind Country 6 months earlier, he had sent Kabuto to investigate. What Kabuto had managed to find out was that a high-ranking official and his wife had conducted inspections on the Pakera branches in the elemental countries. Grudgingly, he had to admit that the Imperials were strong, especially the man in black's commander of his elite unit of bodyguards. "I know I am behind on my time," Kabuto panted. "There is a development. The Akatsuki has been destroyed." That caught Orochimaru's interest. "Explain." And Kabuto told him what had happened. He told his master about the Akatsuki invasion of Suna, of how Konan and the Six Paths led the surviving members of the Akatsuki and 100,000 white Zetsu clones against a joint force of Suna shinobi and 4 battalions of Imperial shinobi and samurai, and of how despite being outnumbered 2-1, the joint Suna Imperial forces were victorious. "There's more," Kabuto continued. "I know the identity of the Akatsuki mastermind. It was not Nagato as we originally expected. You knew him as Tobi, but in truth, his real name is Obito Uchiha." Orochimaru was surprised. So there were 2 Uchihas in the Akatsuki, interesting. Continue. "The Akatsuki were killed to the last man," Kabuto said. "Hidan, Kazuku, Konan, Nagato, Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki. Obito had been captured alive and will face execution upon being sent to the Western Empire." One less headache for me, the Snake Sanin said. "Anything else?" Kabuto grinned. "Yes. The Emperor and his wife. I know who they are." Not wanting to keep his master in suspense, he told him. "The Emperor is the one who was banished for doing his job. The Emperor is Sasuke Uchiha's former teammate, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki." If Orochimaru was surprised before, this took the cake. "Are you telling me that the Emperor himself is Naruto Uzumaki? The dead last?" Kabuto nodded. His parents were Sarutobi's successor and the Red Death herself. That gave Orochimaru pause. As a former Konoha shinobi and 1/3 of the legendary Sannin, he knew of Tsunade's family history involving the Uzumaki and the Senju. Mito Uzumaki was wife to Hashirama Senju, and Tsunade was her granddaughter. Kushina Uzumaki was Tsunade's niece. Kabuto immediately caught on, and Naruto Uzumaki is Tsunade's great-nephew. Orochimaru cackled. Tsunade, in her infinite wisdom, banished her great-nephew. They screwed over the direct descendant of the Six-Paths Sage. So who is his wife? The former Hyuga heiress, Hinata Hyuga. From what I found out, she is the founder of the Western Empire's Imperial Medic program there. I hate to say it, but the Imperial program is a lot more advanced. And speaking of Tsunade, Orochimaru stopped laughing. What? She came to Suna hoping to get back on Gaara's good side in fighting with Suna, and to try and negotiate an alliance with the Emperor. Backing her was Jiraiya, several of their senior Junin and several of Naruto's former teammates, including Sasuke Uchiha. Uzumaki has gotten strong, even stronger than the Uchiha. His wife as well. They both had come a long way since Konoha. I bet that the reunion did not go as well, Orochimaru mused. That is an understatement, Kabuto replied. Tsunade had sicked Kakashi and the other Junin on the both of them. Out of everyone, Maida Guy, Asuma Sarutobi, Jiraiya, and Sasuke had it the worst. Sarutobi suffered a broken hand and a broken arm. Maida Guy, well, his shinobi career is effectively over. Jiraiya lost his arm, and Sasuke, despite using the cursed seal, ended up with a Chidori in his chest. Uzumaki did all of that? Orochimaru asked. When Kabuto nodded, Orochimaru added as an afterthought, well, it's a good thing that he hates Konoha as much as I do. I actually feel a little better with him not agreeing to our alliance, not to mention losing to his captain of the guard. Kakashi Hatake is dead, Kabuto reported. Naruto killed him. No. Zabuza Mamachi, the demon of the mist, took his head. Orochimaru took a moment to take all of the news in. This might work to our advantage. If there is one thing I can count on, is that dear Sasuke cannot stand the fact that someone like Naruto is stronger than him. I may be able to get my body just yet. Should I organize a retrieval team and intercept him from Tsunade and the others? No, I can wait a while longer. What about Naruto and the Western Empire? Orochimaru thought about it for a moment. It's clear that we are not on Naruto and Hinata's radar, and that they hate Konoha as much as we do. So we will leave them and their merchants along for the time being. Send word to the Raikage. Uzumaki and the Western Empire is off limits. His smile grew sinister. But if Sasuke refuses to come to my side, I can always be an emperor. Konohagakure no Sato. At the same time, it had been midnight when Tsunade and the remains of her forces had returned to Konoha. Since that time, she, along with Shizune and Sakura, had been hard at work stabilizing the badly injured shinobi, even going as far as taking a soldier pill in order to keep working. As she had been busy with Jiraiya, Shizune and Sakura had been tasked along with the doctors in treating the injured shinobi, as well as compiling a casualty list of the Anbu who were killed. Konoha Hospital, dawn. Shizune and Sakura gave their reports to Tsunade, who had just finished treating Jiraiya. 16 Anbu dead, Sakura reported as she handed Tsunade a scroll. Here are their names. Kakashi Hatake Kia. Tsunade nodded grimly. She had brought 200 Junin-level shinobi with her to Suna, and yet when Naruto and Hinata had used their forces to block them from interfering at Blade and Jutsu Point. Seeing as how the Junin were outnumbered and outmatched, the remaining Junin had no choice but to comply. Tsunade found them outside Suna, and ordered them to help with the wounded and the dead, after demoting them to Chunin. They were not allowed to take Kakashi's body, as that was incinerated in one of the many pyres outside of Suna. And the others? Tsunade asked. Shizune went over her notes. Out of the group that was attacked by Uzumaki and his wife, Kurenai Sarutobi and Shino Aburame were affected by an unknown type of poison which makes the chakra and nervous systems go haywire. It's not lethal, but it is extremely effective. Were you able to get samples? Tsunade asked. Sakura shook her head. The poison works pretty fast. Despite taking blood samples from both Sarutobi and Aburame, there was no poison in their system. Either way, both of them will be out of action for about a week until they recover. Considering what has happened to the others, they got off lucky. And the others? First up is Maida Guy, Shizune reported. There was too much damage from where Uzumaki had crushed his spine. He won't be able to walk again. His shinobi career is finished. Tsunade nodded grimly. Continue. Asuma Sarutobi's right hand was crushed, along with his trench knife, which proved to be quite a challenge for the doctors to remove without having to remove the hand altogether, Shizune said. We were able to save his hand, but every bone in his finger has been broken. He also has a broken left arm at the elbow. He's looking at several months of recovery. Sakura continued after that. Kiba Inuzuka has suffered several broken bones, including those in his left leg, a broken radius and a broken wrist. Akamaru had been placed in the care of the Inuzuka vets. Yamato's jaw is broken in 3 places, and a fractured chest bone. Sasuke Uchiha was the worst off. A Chidori-sized hole in his chest, half of the ribs are either broken or fractured, and the electricity from the jutsu has overloaded his nervous system and chakra reserves. How long will he be out? Tsunade asked. A month. Month and a half at the most, Sakura replied. What about you? Are you okay? That brat gave me a concussion when he suplexed me, Tsunade grated. Jiraiya, we couldn't save his arm. He died on me twice, but I managed to revive him. She sighed in frustration. How in the hell could he have gotten so powerful? Sensei made sure that we conditioned him, not to mention that we stunted his growth. He was always the unpredictable one, Sakura admitted. He beat Kiba and Neji in the exams. He should not have that kind of power, Sakura, Shizune said. Such power could be turned against us in the long run. If there is anything I know about the Uzumaki, is that they never forget who wrongs them. You forget that I am also of the Uzumaki, as Mito was my grandmother, Tsunade pointed out. But first and foremost, I am a Senju. Naruto has made it clear that he is a major threat to the Leaf. The bodies of Hatake and the Anbu Slan has made that point very clear. Monitor Jiraiya and the others. I must tell the council that Uzumaki and the West is now a certified threat. Shizune and Sakura nodded as Tsunade vanished down the corridor. Underneath Konohagakure, hours later. Inside his inner sanctum, Danzo Shimura was furious. The Sharingan in his eye was spinning, his body leaking killer intent. The man known as the Darkness of Shinobi had just returned from an emergency council meeting, in which Tsunade had delivered some devastating news. Naruto Uzumaki was the Emperor of the West. The dead last, the Kyuubi brat, was the most powerful man on the western continent. The same Naruto Uzumaki who had killed Hanmura and Kaharu over a year ago. The same Naruto Uzumaki who had rendered him helpless inside his own underground chambers. The same Naruto Uzumaki who can lead an army into Konoha and crush it under his heel. People change in the 7 years following their banishment, as Danzu's co-conspirators found out the hard way. The council had been in an uproar when the revelation was revealed. The civilian side of the council wanted Tsunade to declare war on the empire, or by extension, their allies in spring, water and wind. That idea was shot down by the clans, as they would be outnumbered 5-1. But Danzo still could not do anything, as Naruto still had the evidence pertaining to the stolen bloodlines he had on his person, lest he earned the wrath of the Godime and the last Uchiha. All he could do now is plan. Omake. Hokuto no Naruto. Snafu's notes. Kudos to Azure Dragon of the East for inspiring this idea via PM. Naruto's response to Sasuke's attack was to activate his Rinnegan, falling back into the Diva path. Shinra. Tensai. Sasuke's eyes showed complete shock as the black flames were extinguished. In a futile gesture, he raised his hands to block the incoming pressure wave, only to find himself once again on the receiving end of the Shinra Tensai, Naruto's jutsu flinging him back into a wall. Naruto was upon him in an instant. One punch to the sternum had caused Sasuke to cough up blood. This was followed by Naruto unloading a vicious barrage of punches into Sasuke's chest and torso, Sasuke's body jerking like a rag doll with each blow. The coup de grace came with Naruto punching Sasuke through the wall. "Looks like I win again," Naruto said smugly. Turning from the mangled Uchiha, Naruto walked back into the street. Then he stopped and turned around. Sasuke, despite being badly injured, stumbled out of the hole Naruto had made with his body. "Dobi, we are not done yet. I'll give you this much. You're persistent," Naruto admitted, "but the battle is over. You lost. The Sannin lost. It's over. Damn you. Damn you." Sasuke snarled as the cursed seal went into overdrive as he went into stage 2 of the cursed seal. His skin turned into a shade of dark gray, the lips a shade of blue. A black 4-point star-like mark appeared in between his eyes, above the bridge of his nose. His hair had gotten longer, ending at his waist. The eyes no longer had the Sharingan. The sclerae turned black, the irides now yellow. Last, were the large webbed hand-shaped wings on his back. "Die Naruto!" Sasuke screamed as he rose into the air, right before diving at Naruto, claws outstretched, ready to rip Naruto apart. Had Sasuke been paying any attention, he would have noticed the smirk on Naruto's face. Or the fact that his killer intent was radiating from his body like a flame, literally burning off his haori, flak vest and mesh shirt, revealing his own scarred torso. Think the scars which Kazuya Mishima has sans the large scar on his chest. The Emperor met him in midair, his foot smashing against the demonic-looking Uchiha's face, knocking him back. As Sasuke got back to his feet, Naruto struck. A tata 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 tata. Crunch 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 crunch. As Tsunade and Jiraiya watched in complete shock and awe, Naruto unleashed a massive barrage of punches with both hands, striking at the Uchiha's 708 acupressure points. To anyone watching this, it was as if Naruto had moved at an inhuman speed, even faster than Rock Lee and Guy combined as he pummeled Sasuke with his fists, the Uchiha's body jerking around violently like a rag doll from the impact of the blows. Then Naruto switched from his hands to one foot, kicking Sasuke just as fast. Quote dot dot dot. Tatata. Crunch 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 crunch. Right before resuming punching him again, only this time with one hand, not slowing down. Quote dot dot dot. Tatata. Crunch 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 crunch. And Naruto returned to using his other hand like he had done earlier at the start of the technique. Wata. Ka pow. The final blow had knocked Sasuke overhead, crashing in front of Tsunade and Jiraiya. Imperial style. 100 crack fist, Naruto said as he retrieved his cage-style hat. With a flourish, he placed it on his head, turned around and began to walk away. "It's over for you, Sasuke. Dobi." Once again, Naruto stopped in mid-step, but did not turn around. Sasuke, still in stage 2, got back to his feet, shrugging off Tsunade's attempts to help him. "We're not done yet, Dobi," he shouted as he coughed up blood. "Don't you turn your back on me." Slowly, Naruto turned his head. "I got 4 words for you, Tem. Ome wa mo shindiru. You are already dead. Is that so?" Sasuke snarled back, taking a step forward, then paused as his body began to jerk and twitch violently. Sasuke screamed as he felt his body's internal organs begin to break down, his head swelling to inhuman proportions, the hair falling out of his deformed skull. His torso also began to swell as he fell to his knees. Uzumaki.